There's a lot of information lurking there in your unstructured data. But how do you make the most of it? What even is unstructured data? Semi-structured, structured? Well, today we're going to answer those questions, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, this is Chris Brandt here with Sandesh Patel. Welcome to another future video. Before we get started, 95% of the people watching this channel are not subscribed. That subscription really helps this channel. So if you could click that button, it would be greatly appreciated. Now, you may have lots of files on your systems: video, audio, Word docs, spreadsheets, CAD files. All of them can contribute to business insights. The question is how to get at that information. Today, we have with us Kirk Marple, CEO and founder of Unstructured Data, a platform designed to help you understand the meanings in your unstructured data. Kirk is going to help us understand how all this works and what you can get from this data. Welcome, Kirk.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me here.
Oh, thanks so much for joining. I'm really interested to hear more about this because, and in particular, I think one of the things that's interesting about what you guys have going on is you deal with time-coded data and interesting things like that. But before we get there, could you just give me a little bit about what Unstruck is and, what was the sort of founder's story there?
I mean, I came from the video world primarily. So I had a video transcoding company. We were getting files up on Netflix and YouTube and folks like that for, all the broadcasters you probably heard of, and really got a lot of experience with like metadata management and different file formats. And so spent 10 years of my life in that world. And once after I sold the company, I started to look at, there's other use cases of that kind of media, and ended up at General Motors working on data from cruise vehicles and started to be like, wow, IoT data and time series data is kind of similar to closed captioning in a way of like how it's time synchronized. And I started to think that there's really an application of all this stuff I've been doing for all those years for enterprises and different kind of businesses. So we've really broadened the scope to really it's unstructured data perceiving the real world. That's the way we look at it. So it's, a phone capture, a drone image, a 3D scan, anything like that is what we're focused on.
Well, so let's, because I think we throw around the terms unstructured, semi-structured, structured data a lot. And I don't think all the time people know what the distinction is. Could you kind of break that down?
Honestly, it's almost, it isn't as cut and dried as people think. And so, typically that's probably the obvious thing is, structured data, I just usually say, think of rows and columns. Think of Google Sheets, think of Excel, think of a database. That's usually what people consider structured data. And unstructured is kind of everything else. You may have companies that are dealing with log data like Splunk or Datadog, and they call that unstructured. You get the documents, the video, the images, all the stuff we deal with. I look at it, it's really file-based data versus tabular data is kind of how I separate it. And for us, we try and deal with any kind of, quote, unstructured data, but usually we're trying to contextualize it to the real world. And so it's typically, even if it's a document, it's like an inspection report of something they've been analyzing. So we have a little bit of a sweet spot there, but we're trying to be pretty broad in supporting every type of file that might come across somebody's desk.
Certainly, when we talk about the massive growth in storage, the big growth is really in the unstructured data side, right? Yeah. So I got to imagine there's a lot of value in having something like this.
We talked to some oil and gas customers and they're like, look, we don't need Google search for our data. Like it's not structured in that way. That's useful, just full text indexing, but it's the semantic part of what are the relationships of this document to this image to this 3D file. That's really what they're looking for. And there are some solutions out there in different domains for that, but not something you could take like all their well data in all these different random file formats and try and make sense of it. And so that's, it really is a struggle for a lot of people, but I think a lot of them that we talk to don't even know it's possible. And so we're trying to sort of make a market here that is really something that, is new for a lot of people. But once you kind of explain it to them and they're like, yeah, just dump all your data in that you have on these hard drives or on your S3 bucket, and cool, now you can see it on a map, see it over time, see all the tags that we generate from it. They're like, wow, it just like, they start thinking about all these like other ideas they could do with the data.
So before we get into how you do it, let's talk about the why. Why is this data so important? I mean, you kind of talked through some, little bits and pieces there, but why should people be, analyzing their unstructured data?
The why is really important, where typically it's captured for a reason. Very commonly, you're inspecting something. We kind of call it perception data. I mean, you're perceiving something about the real world. Like it could be drones doing agriculture data. It could be wildlife tracking or wildfire tracking from an aerial survey. Or it can simply be somebody walking around their facility looking for problems. I mean, that's a really common use case where they're just today taking pictures with their phone. And so the why is usually there's an intent to it. And the idea is, I mean, it's typically sort of a triaging mechanism. They're trying to find things and sift through the data. And what we always say is, I mean, I kind of say like they have a haystack of data. They're just trying to make smaller haystacks from. It's very hard to find the needle, and that's maybe not even what they want, but they want to try and get it to a point where maybe there is a human in the loop still, but they want to make that really something where you're not looking at 10,000 photos, you're looking at 100 or 10.
And I'm trying to wrap my head around, the complexities of what you're talking about, right? Because you're talking about kind of anything goes kind of as data, really. I mean, anything you can put on a file server could be a data source, right?
Yep.
And then like relating those, like a drone shot to, well data to, somebody walking around taking pictures. That seems really complex.
It's an interesting thing because, I mean, there's kind of the first level. I kind of describe it as like first order metadata, that it's what's in the file. Like, I mean, you have your typical EXIF data or your GPS location and time. And like photographers are used to that, like Adobe Lightroom and that kind of media management. And get that out. But then there's the perception of it, like what's in the photo. And you're starting to see like Google and Facebook and folks like doing more computer vision work kind of built in of like identifying people, places, I mean, in the images. But it's still very generic. And even document analysis is somewhat generic. Like even the out of the box models that we use today, it might say building or outdoor or person, but it's not saying like BMW or conveyor belt or this is you. And so what we see is really that kind of second order of metadata is, okay, what can we extract from it? I mean, we can run ML, we can run different APIs at it. We can get what we call entities because we're knowledge graph based. But then there's that third order that we're trying to get to of more the semantic meaning, the relationships of, oh, you're a person, you work for this organization. The organization is named in the document, but we're seeing a picture of you in the image, or let's just say use conveyor belt. The conveyor belt is something that's in an image. It's reported on in a document, but that conveyor belt has a SKU or an ID in a database, like an SAP database. How do you connect those dots up? And in a more automatic, or at least semi-automatic way, those relationships are what people care about. And so I talk about the data is more a means to an end than, like in my old world, video, we watch it on Netflix, and that was the consumption point. But here, the consumption is almost a couple hops downstream. Like they don't really care about looking at every image. They care about the inference and the relationships, the semantic part that they get from that. And that's really what we're all about is, I mean, there's the term the semantic web. I mean, even Google's knowledge graph kind of goes down that, but it's very consumer focused. We're essentially trying to create almost like a private semantic web from their data, is really the long-term goal. And so it's a multi-step process. But you got to get the data, you got to have ingestion, you got to be able to parse it, you got to be able to run compute on it, APIs, and you have to have a way to play like a data model, kind of a common data model to put it back into to make sense of. And those are the parts of our stuff that we're focused on.
So you threw out a couple terms there that, like probably worthwhile to clarify. Knowledge graph. And I know you guys use graph APIs and things like that. Could you just, for the lay person, break down what that is and why that matters? I
can't remember the name of the toy, but it's like you kind of have the little wooden knobs that you kind of plug together with
Tinker
little
toys.
sticks. Tinker toys. I was thinking Lincoln Logs, but Tinker toys. I mean, it's kind of like that. I mean, if you think of sort of all the pieces you're plugging together, those are the entities or the nodes in the graph. And depending on how you connect them, you're essentially creating either a tree or just a graph of all these relationships. And so we have the pieces would be like, a person, an organization, a physical asset, we call it, anything in the real world, or even a place. Or the kind of generic version is what we just call a tag. Like if we can't identify it as anything else, it's just a tag. And you're just ending up connecting those. And the point, so typically you talk about entity extraction. So that's kind of identifying what are the little pieces you want to plug together. And then entity enrichment, which is kind of almost like a web spidering concept where you're like continuing to refine and add relationships. And that's really where it gets interesting, where you may have a place that we've identified in documents, say Seattle, because I live here. You can go to an API like Google Places, learn a bit about it. You could hit the, like I was just playing around with the Safe Graph API for their data, and you could start layering that back into the graph with extra data. But then it gets interesting where you could start to be like, well, Seattle is part of Washington. I don't actually have an edge between Seattle and Washington in the graph. But because I've realized that there's a relationship there that I might have gotten from some other API, I can add edges to the graph. And that's really where we start to realize, oh, this person works for this organization. We may have seen them as two parallel things, separate things, but now we've created an edge between them. And so that's kind of that enrichment. And it's almost a recursive, like forever kind of process. But that's really where it gets interesting. I mean, to me, that's the fun part where you can start to pull in data from other databases, pull in a weather API, pull in a traffic API, and like start to layer and layer and layer. And then you can really get some really interesting combinations going on.
Yeah, so it sounds like basically the more disparate pieces of data that you throw into this thing, the better the data gets, because you're using other pieces of data to enrich already existing data.
Yep. And I mean, I had started this as a podcast discovery platform years ago on the side. It was like my little side project. And I would basically scan RSS feeds for podcasts, pull in the audio, grab the links to the show notes from the RSS, and spider and create this graph of who's on the show, what topics are they talking about, what web pages are linked to in the show notes. And it was super cool. I mean, it was just so fun. I couldn't figure out how to not be Spotify or Apple to actually make it a business, but it worked. I mean, and that was the tech that I essentially injected into this company when we got started and made it really more about businesses and the other types of data.
It's interesting how things, start off one way and then, you pivot and you come out the other end with something entirely different. And I think during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of that.
Yeah. And it was really, I had started this 5 years ago now, just a little passion project because I had an idea about a sort of music and live events and stuff like that as well. But then it's like pandemic starts, there's no live events. and then you start to look at, well, how would you consume this without being one of the major music or podcast providers? It was like, I could do it as like a data service or something like that. But then I just started to be like, I happened to be at I was CTO of a drone analytics company. And I was like, wow, you could apply this for this world. And I'd had some geospatial background like years ago, but it kind of all clicked and it just came together. And I was like, look, this is really what I want to do, and just put all the pieces together. But it's really all built. I mean, our true kind of core IP is that knowledge graph. Mm-hmm. And we can plug in a lot of commoditized like ML and things like that we're not going to build every ML model in the world. But it's really that object model, that sort of core engine of the knowledge graph that everything hangs off of.
I think that's really interesting because you do mention that adding geospatial data. I mean, you may have data that is not even your data, but just publicly accessible data that you could plug into this, and then all of a sudden your data is giving you drastically new insights, I would imagine, right?
Yep. Yeah, we were just literally talking about the feature of what we call places. So you could have a geofence, like an area of the world, and a customer could drop in, there's this company called Esri that does geospatial data. They could drop in one of their Esri shapefiles, but then we could go enrich it with near maps, satellite imagery, or I met this company that does like soil temperature data. And it's this API economy where I can just call their API, give them a query, and take the data back in. And so federate that back into the graph. But then you could start to do things with their data too, and kind of build on top of their layers. And that's where it gets really interesting. I mean, and so we do a lot of integrations with different sort of data providers and kind of compute API providers. But it really then becomes something where if you can start to correlate those different data sets, you can create new entities and new relationships.
Well, and you talk about, the semantic web, and, we hear a lot about, Web3 and, sharing and accessing those sort of publicly available, data APIs or commercially available data APIs and things like that. And sort of, kind of data as a service piece of it is another interesting aspect of it. And I could imagine, once you glean some interesting insights out of this, there could be, shareable data that would, add to the enrichment of other people's data as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've been thinking about that. There's something called STAC, STAC, that's a, spatiotemporal asset catalog that I learned about recently from the geospatial side. And and it's an API format that you could publish your data in this way that other people can consume it in sort of geospatial. And so we may build a little API layer on top of our stuff because it fits our model really well. And that's a shareable kind of data sharing kind of community option. And it fits right in with what we're doing. Like, we have a GraphQL API. So we have a standard API that people can use, but it's not about the data product right now. It's more like a database. Like, it's more functional. Like, they're doing queries, they're doing writes back to the database. But I think almost publishing a data set from our platform for consumption would be interesting. And it's something we've talked to people about, of like, they may want to have like a public portal of the data that they want to share a slice of the data out to the public. And maybe even have them like annotate it or comment on it or something like that. So,
well, I could see a data marketplace. I mean, that could be something that, everybody loves the App Store, right? I mean, so, create a data marketplace where you could, kind of have like a Mechanical Turk piece of it where people are, kind of enriching it, manually, and then another piece where they're just, procuring it or just, getting it for free.
And it sounds like, from Snowflake I think they've done some really interesting things with their kind of data sharing and data publishing on a structured side. And I think it's something that I could see us getting into in the future, of like being that repository for the data, but then sort of publishing out slices of it to people. And it happens in the geospatial world. I know it happens in the like satellite photo world and stuff like that. But in this kind of more deeper relationship world, there really isn't a lot of them. There's a company called Data.World that I think they have a great podcast too, that they're somewhat similar to us in terms of a knowledge graphic based approach, but I think they're still more structured data, tabular data focus. But I like what they write about a lot and what they talk about, of just that whole knowledge graph based architecture. So,
well, if you can become the unstructured version of Snowflake, that would be pretty awesome.
Did you read our pitch? You read our pitch deck when we raised money?
No, I didn't.
No, I'm joking.
But I would love to.
That was literally the concept. And it said, look, there isn't a Snowflake for unstructured data. And they can do some things with it, but we want to be the de facto kind of Snowflake-ish kind of company for dealing with this kind of data. And that's our long-term goal.
Yeah, well, their IPO was, something of wonder for sure.
Yeah.
Even if we could be like 100th or 1,000th of that, I'll probably be okay. So,
if you could wrap in a lacework like component to that to do your B, A or B round or whatever you're on, that'd probably be a good choice too. So, we've kind of talked about how it because you're a big data enrichment platform. It sounds like. I mean, that's a enormously valuable but time-consuming sort of thing. I gotta imagine this is just an incredibly, if you're dealing with timecode data like large audio files, large video files, all kinds of files, even like huge CAD files and things like that. It's got to be incredibly resource intensive to sort of parse through that and make those kinds of connections. How do you make that all work?
Thankfully, I had a good bit of background with some really large video files back in the day. We were doing full-length video, movies, and stuff like that. So, I had to get really deep in the weeds with storage and networking, and we were all on-prem back in the day, but having to really think through, okay, how much throughput do you get from this SAN? Like, how many times are you copying data? And just, are you parsing things multiple times? that part thankfully was natural to me. So I think that helped a lot. But even now, I mean, I'm looking at, okay, we're moving data between the clouds. Like, why is that taking, like, why aren't we getting 100 megabyte per second versus, I mean, like a gigabyte per second? Like,
Right.
and so I'm having to look at a lot of that, just doing a lot of performance tuning lately because we just launched. So I'm still kind of perf tuning things and doing some load testing, but that is where it matters. I mean, we're a serverless architecture, so we can scale and burst out very easily. We're Azure based. And I think that's also a unique concept where we're not actually using Kubernetes at all. We're not using any VMs. We're fully managed and we take advantage of a lot of scalable managed services. And I think that to us is, probably a bit unique, but it also, you can dump in 10,000 files and we burst out, scale out, and then we just kind of come back, and it's as a COGS for the company, it keeps us at a good cost structure. And a lot of the compute we do is at ingest time. Mm-hmm. So we may burst, kind of our COGS is really bursty where we spend a lot of money when you put the data in, and that might cost a little bit, but then after time, it's just in the index. It's just in a database essentially, and it gets super cheap the longer the data stays in there. So for us, it's a good way to balance our costs versus, and we're all kind of consumption based, you could say, in terms of how people pay for it. It's all just how much do you put more data in, and then maybe some knobs for what kind of compute are you running on it? Like, are you training models on it? Are you doing other things with it? We charge a little more. Well,
and you're what you're talking about is you're traditionally in the road of HPC or hyperscale kind of builds, yep. and I would imagine you're kind of falling more to the hyperscale side of things, but like doing it with scale out serverless infrastructure is an interesting take on it.
Yeah, I've kind of been in this distributed systems, parallel computing world. I did a bunch with computer graphics back in the day, and so it's that parallelism is something that's so key. I keep fighting to make sure that like we don't have any single points of synchronization in the system to make sure, with these kind of scatter gather models and different things like that, where you have to synchronize things, really to try and avoid them, because that's when you really lose scale. And so we're trying to, be as that are quote infinitely scalable, where it's really, it just is how much we want to spend, and like how much we want to limit it. But there's also even other, we've leveraged a lot of Azure things, but there's some other great vendors out there that we're looking at for the future that have sort of next gen graph databases or next gen whatever, that we're sort of keeping in mind for the future. There's a company, ArangoDB, that I really like what they do. They have, I had to build sort of a hybrid of search and a database, graph database, and they have it kind of all wrapped together already. And so that could be something that maybe next year we look at doing a prototype and moving to.
Yeah, well, that's the good thing about being young and agile. You kind of change course really quickly.
Kirk, you were saying earlier that you just launched. But we've also talked a lot about your vision and how you guys are going to be the next Snowflake. I did catch that. So just curious, like, where are you at in the journey at this point?
Yeah, so we raised a seed round about 1 year and 3 months ago. So what's that, 15 months? We are just basically pushing go-to-market right now. So we're looking for customers. We have, had some early design partners in Q4, like last fall, gave us some great feedback. We decided to kind of go heads down in Q1 and put more into the product, because there were some things that we were more of a search tool then, but you couldn't action on the data. And so we added in a lot more. We have a ton of integrations now. You can do alerting on things. So we pumped a lot of features in that people really giving us feedback on. But yeah, we're just working with trying to push go to market this summer, and really just raising awareness about the company. The product's actually live in the Azure Marketplace right now, and nice. Yeah, it's exciting times. Just trying to get customers.
You're in build mode now. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So I think we're now going to we pushed really hard to get to 1.0, like our 1.0 version, which we just are pretty much just putting the last little polishing on, performance work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But now it's all about just customers and getting people live on the platform. We have a couple of pilots that are going to be starting very shortly that are pretty broad. Like some are in the kind of more aerial survey domain, or like drone inspection domain, and some are even just document and email focused. And so we actually had some really interesting like e-discovery use cases. And so right before launch, we kind of slipped in email support as another file format that we could support. So you could drop a PST file from Outlook into us, and we crack it all open, do text analysis on it, and make it searchable in a semantic way.
Yeah.
And that, based on the patterns we built, it took like 2 days to build. And so it was just one of those things where we have such a rich platform now that adding in another file format or something like that is really easy to plug all the pieces together.
How are you planning on going to market? Like, I'd love to know a little bit about that. And I'd also like to know, who are you targeting? Like, who's your customer? Like, is there a certain, characteristic that you look for?
Go to market for us. Like, so we're just pushing, basically outbound marketing, outbound email marketing, PR, just all the classic things right now. So we really just turned the knob up the last month and a half. And it's been good. We've tweaked the messaging a little bit where now it's really about unstructured data about real world assets. That's really our short form, where we're perceiving something in the real world, either in the written form, audio form, or visual form. And that, I think, is our messaging wasn't as clear about that. It was a bit too generic. Kind of last year, we were like, hey, we're a data platform. And it's kind of hard. It's kind of obvious, but it's hard to sell something so broad. And so we've kind of said, let's at least just, even though our platform can do a million different things, our focus is really about perception of real world assets. But that could be land, it could be a conveyor belt, or it could be an animal. That's still broad, but it constrains it a bit better. So messaging and marketing is really key. So that's what we're focused on for go-to-market. And it's really the strategic data manager, we call it. So somebody that's like a CIO, CDO level, somebody that would buy Snowflake, somebody that's thinking about their IT infrastructure. It's even from a machine learning data manager kind of focal point. We can act as a data prep platform for people, essentially filter your data down and then push it out to an annotation tool for model training. But then we can productionalize the model too, where if you have a model, you can plug that into us and run it against the data in your platform, in your sort of your warehouse, in the graph. And so that really, we connected those dots now that we can really fit into a lot of different parts of that ecosystem. We are doing a little bit of model training, but only using AutoML, where if you want to annotate your data and find your vehicles in your data, then you could build a model with our app. But anything past that, we go to partners. So there's a lot of great computer vision partners and NLP partners and folks like that. So we're more of a partner integration. Other than that, we're kind of giving sort of easy button features in some of these ML areas, but then past that, we just want to do it through integrations.
Yeah. You have one of the classic problems where you've kind of built a data platform, but it's impossible to market a platform. So you have to, start figuring out your ideal use cases to, sort of convey your message.
And I was in that world in the video world where we had we were an asset management platform, we were a transcoding platform, or whatever. And then we started getting the sweet spot of broadcast. And we started to realize converting formats for playout from one format to another was where we started to fit in, because it was kind of like that impedance mismatch of this hardware didn't play well with this hardware. And
I know that world very well doing this podcast.
Yeah. It's such a crazy thing. And that once you can kind of figure that out, you can replicate it. And so that's really what we're working on right now, is what are the sort of the repeatable processes. But the folks, and also it's a messaging thing where I think people, they've captured the data. So data acquisition isn't something we're focused on. We assume somebody has some data being acquired, but typically they're storing it on SharePoint, or they're storing it on an S3 bucket. And their idea of search is file names.
Right.
And that's literally as far as a lot of these folks are going. And we're like, look, here what you can do, put it into here. Now you get all your data on a map. You get all your data over time. You get your data, you can slice and dice it like an analytics, like a Tableau, via all these different kind of filtering axes. And it just kind of, their minds are like, there was almost like this glass ceiling of what they thought they were capable of. And now I think we're having to teach to say, well, look, I mean, now you can start doing this. And then the kind of things we want to get into are more like trend analysis. What changed over time? Or either in a positive way, like this stop sign used to be at this intersection and now it's not there. Can we automatically sort of figure out where that trigger is of when objects are not in the scene rather than objects are in the scene? So there's we're just adding like counting analytics in this next release. So really a lot of things that people can really start to do very interesting analysis on, but in more of a citizen data analyst kind of way. Like we call ourselves a no-code platform. Like you can plug things to our API, but within our project, you don't need to know Python. It's much more like a ThoughtSpot or like a Tableau kind of tool where you can do a ton within our product. But we still have those APIs if you really want to get into it deeper.
Is there a Gartner category for what you are developing, or is that still in process?
It would probably be considered more like data management. And I just got introduced to the Gartner analyst this week in that area. And so talking to him. And so I think we are kind of a new category. I mean, there really isn't an exact fit. There's people that are in the unstructured data platform space, but they're very document focused. They're very like RPA, the RPA world and all that, which really isn't what we are. Like we could do, there are pieces of it that overlap, but this idea of how do you correlate 3D with a document? Like no one's doing it.
Yeah.
But I've talked to like people that are analyzing mines, and that's what they want. They have a document about a point cloud. Like, how do you even connect those dots? And those are the kind of places where we can put in like point cloud segmentation, differentiate what's land, what's trees, whatever. But then if they could tag that with something else, they can correlate to a document or a Zoom meeting. That is just like a big level up from where they're at. So. And that kind of linking part is where we're leaning in. Sorry to interrupt. We call it kind of auto linking. The more we can kind of auto link things together based on their context is really, that's the long term where we'll keep turning that flywheel more.
I would imagine there's all sorts of really random use cases that people aren't even thinking of, that they have the data for, that they're not even realizing they could use it. Like, for example, like you could have audio with your surveillance camera that's watching your factory floor, and it's detecting some wear patterns in the conveyor belt or something like that, for example. And, that would not be something that they would ever think about looking at to, identify where, their maintenance cycles might need to be. But that's probably something you could tackle, right?
Yeah. Vibration data, we've heard that even. But we're not going to build the algorithm that analyzes the vibration data, but we can plug it in very easily and we can store the master and we can store the results. And then start to correlate that you got what we call them observations. You observed a squeak at 3 a.m. What else was happening around? Like, go correlate that with the video that was captured at 3 a.m. And we could even get, you could get IoT data and correlate with it. And that's one of the things we want to do is correlate with more like time series data and structured data. But say they had who badged in, at that moment, like an hour before, an hour after. If we had that data, we could start to correlate some things like that.
Yeah, that's really interesting stuff. So tell me, what does like the output look like? Like what form do you get? Are there dashboards? Are there how do you visualize this?
It looks a lot like a typical data analytics tool, like a Power BI or something like that. So we have a map panel on the right, a histogram kind of time panel on the bottom that you can kind of zoom into different parts of time and select little time regions. And then kind of a main, what we call our kind of view panel that's can be visualized as a grid, a list, or a graph. So you can actually get a subset of your data and see the connection, or essentially visualizing the knowledge graph to you. And then across the top, there's like a search and filter panel. And you can save your searches as like what we call a view, like common database term. And what we're adding then in is view alerts. So think of a view as kind of a saved filter. Anything you dump in that view, when we see something sort of fit that view, hit a Slack channel. So it's kind of like automatic data triage. And that could be set up for, okay, show me everything where there's been an image of water pooling in this geofence region in the last 24 hours. And we can have these kind of persistent alerts going. Because we've heard of people literally like printing out images that they took on their phone, and that was their method of triaging for their manager. And just number one, like we built an iOS app to just eliminate the upload pain of just getting to your desk, syncing your phone for a lot of these folks that are on the kind of walking around a lot and kind of in their facilities. So to speed that process up, so by the time they get back to their desk to look at it, it's already been indexed. It's already in, they just refresh, or well, it should have already refreshed, and it's just there. And that I think is, I mean, just time compression is a big ROI for us. I mean, giving people back an hour in their day that they're managing this data, but then there's the whole, okay, you can do all of these other things with your data that you couldn't do. And it's a classic, like people call it dark data. And my original name for the company was like light dark, because we're kind of like lighting up the dark data. But that's really where we're getting to is something like that.
You know, like we kind of talked through some of the directions that you're going to head in the future, but like, what's the big vision for Unstruck? What's next for Unstruck here?
Yeah, so we right now on the back end, we have all these entities that we're extracting. So people, places, things, and what we call assets. We're actually extracting a lot of them today, but we're not visualizing all of them in the UI. That we want to be able to pivot and show, okay, well, where were people mentioned on the map? Where were people mentioned over time? So right now we do where files live, like where the file that was taken, the image was taken. But we want to be able to pivot on the graph and visualize the graph in other ways. So we're going to be working a lot of UI work over the next month or so. Some of the other things are just other ML integrations, some things like that. One of the big ones is integrating photogrammetry support. So a lot of times your drone footage or mobile phone footage, you have to send it off to another vendor. You have to wait for the point cloud to come back. We're actually going to make it as easy as video transcoding. So, and one of the other cool things is inferring drone flights from the data. So you don't have to tell us where the flight was, or here's the set of data for this flight. We'll cluster that data and go, oh, we know this was a flight, either by the metadata or time and the location, and automatically send that off for 3D generation. So that just more what we call renditions of the data to be automatically generated. That's another big one I'm excited about.
This all sounds really incredibly cool. I think, like the idea of extracting information from things that historically have just been, deposited on a server somewhere and not looked back at ever is a really, really cool use case. And I'll tell you, if you're going to be the unstructured version of Snowflake, that's a good model to follow. We know those guys, and we know Mike Spicer at Sutter Hill. And, when they were originally talking, Snowflake up, and, every time we saw them, it went, like from, this is $1 billion, this is a $40 billion company, this is a $100 billion company. And it just, and like, we're like, okay, yeah, sure. And then like, it was, and we're like, whoa. Yeah. So, I mean, if you can, get to that level of success, that, congratulations.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy with even a piece of that, but it's still, I think the potential's there for sure. I think it's, because we see these companies, one of our investors is an oil and gas company, and that they literally said, look, they have on S3 buckets of data they've captured of undersea rovers of their oil pipelines. And it's just sitting in these S3 buckets with no true indexing. You can't search by map. You can't search by time. You can't run ML models on it like automatically and be like, hey, highlight this area of the world. Go find me all the rocks that are sitting on top of the pipelines undersea. And we had built some of these bespoke models at my old company. And it's like, what if you could just do this in like a no-code way, and we could have a marketplace of models, like a fishing net detector, a rock detector. And they're not going to be 100% perfect, but they're good enough for data filtering and data discovery. And one of the other features we're going to be adding in is backfill. So you could say, hey, we've now deployed another model. go backfill that and run that model against other data, as well as this kind of retraining of models, because we want to be continually retraining the models, the auto ML ones that we build, and just keeping that data a lineage there, because that's the other part of what we do. I mean, we track the data all the way back to the S3 bucket that it came from. So we do essentially our data lineage tool to know this image used to live upstream at this location. So there's a lot of storage management stuff we're going to do too, like auto archiving after 30 days and doing things like that, but just more classic storage management, kind of HSM stuff that we're looking at as well.
You guys have a tremendous amount of opportunity, tremendous amount of things that you can do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like in some ways, the whole data analytics world and creating outcomes from data, I feel like we're just scratching the surface, really. I mean, there's just still so much potential to get outcomes that, we're just not there yet. But that's why people like Snowflake have a $68 billion valuation, right? Is because that's how much value you can produce.
Well, and also, I mean, we're essentially creating some form of structure from the unstructured. So the graph, you could export that back to Databricks and train an ML model purely on the graph data. And that's another area that I'm really excited about, is kind of building graph embeddings. Like, can we infer clusters of information from the graph itself? Like, oh, did you realize that this data over here is sort of related to this data over here by these tags, or these are all connected to this person or this organization? And I mean, I always point out, like, I mean, Palantir or like a C3 AI are kind of in this world. They kind of have this common object model and this kind of graph model, but they're like the rarefied air of like, you have to pay to play $1 million per project probably. But for us, I mean, we're trying to be a little bit like more of like a light version of that, but for the masses, where, I mean, and it's even been fun. Like, we've done some things just if you're just going around taking pictures, I mean, inspecting your garden, I mean, and you want to see how your garden's grown over time. Like, we could correlate some of that data and be like, oh, well, here, geofence this little area in the corner of your garden, and you can look at all the images. And then if we could add some ML to that. So there's just like, what I'd love to be is have companies built on us in the future. And that's really the goal, is to be a platform that, like, oh, sure, you're in construction, you're in agriculture, you're in whatever. We give you 80% of what you need. You build your bespoke ML on top of it, maybe a UI that is more appropriate for you, and just talk to our GraphQL API and like, we'll be sort of that Twilio model, or that something that is just super easy to use. And so that's really, I've always been a platform guy. And so I always see it's hard to commit to one vertical, but I mean, we try and pick a few just to sell into, but I think 5 years from now, I'd love to be, I mean, doing things in media entertainment or like healthcare, the things we haven't really thought much about right now, but the potential's there.
Yeah. I mean, I think you sort of have unlimited potential with the kind of data you're working with. Well, Kirk, thank you so much for coming on and, sharing your story about Unstruck. It's definitely some very cool stuff, and I'm really excited to see where you go with this. Thanks so much, and congratulations.
I appreciate it. No, it's, I mean, we're still very early on the ride, sort of the first inning here, but it's, I think there's just so much potential that we're excited about. And now, I mean, if anybody out there, this sounds interesting too, love to talk to you, just explore. I mean, we're just looking for folks that find this maybe useful. And, because I think we're never going to think of all the options. I mean, there's just so many things out there we could do.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching. Love to hear from you in the comments. And if you like what you saw, please click that like button. And as I mentioned before, subscribing helps the channel a ton. So I'd greatly appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. And I will see you in the next video.